यहाँ धेरैजनालाई थोराट बारे थाहा नहोला तर एकाडेमिक हिसाबले यो विषयमा रिसर्च गरिरहनु भएको लेखिरहनु पढिरहनु भर्नुको लागि चाहिँ म सन्दर्भ सामग्री नै हो यहाँले गुगल गरेर हेर्न सक्नुहुन्छ एकदमै भारतमा यो कास्ट सिस्टमको विषयमा लेख्ने बोल्ने अगुवाहरूमध्ये म आफै एक्टिभिस्टकै रूपमा पनि लेख्ने बोल्ने मान्छेहरूमध्ये पर्नुहुन्छ त्यो हिसाबले उहाँको पनि अनुभव चाहिँ हाम्रो लागि यो जात व्यवस्था बुझ्नका लागि यसमा आएको रूपान्तरण गर्नुपर्ने रूपान्तरण यो सबै कुरा बुझ्नको लागि सहयोगी हुन्छ होला जस्तो मलाई लाग्छ उहाँ अब जोइन भइहाल्नुहुन्छ
What methodology one should use to study the changing nature of the caste system. Now, and in that I will discuss on three issues. One is the concept of caste discrimination and untouchability. Second is the method which the indicators of that we should use to study the changing nature of caste and untouchability. And third is what are the other indicators that we should take to study the discrimination. Now, to go straight away to the subject, caste discrimination necessarily involved the denial of equal rights to them. They did not have prices of business, did not have right to employment, quality employment with the Vaishyas and even Shudras and the Kshatriyas and the Brahmanas. So they suffer from the denial of equal rights, as a matter of fact. That is one aspect, that they are without entrepreneurship and that they are not in a quality employment. It is because of the denial of right under the caste system. But at the same time, they were involved in manual casual labor, and that manual casual labor, in fact, took the form of slavery. Now there is a lot of literature that untouchable were a slave caste. So this is the feature that you should understand of caste. Now, untouchability, from which only Dalits suffered, the untouchable suffered, and not the Shudra suffered, is the idea of pollution and purity. You must remember that the caste discrimination in terms of denial of right, every caste suffered except the Brahmin. The Shudra, the Vaishya, the Kshatriyas are denied some right. So the denial of right, the untouchable suffered from denial of all the rights, as a matter of fact. But the untouchable also had an additional problem, which the Shudra, Vaishya, and Kshatriya doesn't have, and that is that they are considered as polluting and impure caste. As a result, there are consequences of that. Treating them untouchable and impure is that there is a physical segregation, that the residences are separate. There is no social interaction with them, interdining, intercaste marriages, and normal social private interactions. So they suffer from the social exclusion and segregation. These are the two aspects from which the untouchable suffered. Now, how do we study this? I think your study is right that caste is not the same as it was in the ancient period or medieval period. It has changed. Now, for example, there are several factors. Nepal constitution itself banned the caste system and untouchability. Nepal also has a law against untouchability and set up several institutions. So obviously, because of legal restrictions and because of changes in the economy and society, caste has been changing. But the issue is to what extent it has changed. What is changing and what is persisting, that is the key issue. Now, how do we study that? That is the major challenge, because caste system, in terms of denial of right and in terms of untouchability, is involved in social relation. It is embedded in social relation. And to capture the interpersonal relation in terms of denial of right and untouchability is a very difficult problem. Sociologists are doing, we are doing in economics. But we have developed certain methodology, and I will share with you that methodology, and then you should see that to what extent your study is up to that methods and what more you need to do and what are the weaknesses and the strength of your study. Now, one can define the caste discrimination and untouchability in the following terms. Amartya Sen, in one of his very celebrated paper, the discussion paper that he did for the Asian Institute of Technology, he has a paper on social exclusion. But there are other people from USA who have studied the market discrimination and other discrimination. There is a whole lot of scientists who are working on social scientists on concept of social exclusion. Taking all that together, I would suggest that the methodology that one should use with respect to Dalit is the following. What we have to do is we identify two things. One is exclusion of untouchable. Now, exclusion means basically exclusion from denial of land right denial of production enterprises or business or some categories of employment, and denial of access to public services, denial of access to inter-caste dining, denial of access to inter-caste marriages, and social relation. So there is a complete exclusion. So the concept of complete exclusion or exclusion from economic, social, cultural, and religious right is the one concept that one you should use in studying the discrimination. But the untouchable also are characterized by inclusion. While they are excluded in so many categories from rights, they are also included and forcefully included, as a matter of fact, as a manual casual labor. That has been from the past. It is said quite clearly in Manusmriti that the only job of untouchability is to serve the Brahmin and the other caste as a manual labor, not as a quality employment, not as a business person, not as a farmer, but as a manual based laborer. So there is a forced inclusion, and that forced inclusion also took later on the form of slavery and serf. So untouchable caste were a slave caste also. There is enough evidence now that is coming up in India. I myself am working on the slavery of untouchable for the Harvard University. So there is evidence now. So they are included also, characterized by both the process of inclusion, exclusion, as well as if you want to study, use this concept. Now let me go a step ahead quickly because we don't have a time. One could use two categories of exclusion and inclusion. Number one is the market. Gary Becker was the first one, economist from Chicago University, who brought the concept of market discrimination and what is discrimination, why it is practiced, all kind of questions that he has answered, tried to discuss. But here, for the purposes of this study, the discrimination of the untouchable now happen through the market. For example, let us take the land, agricultural land. Now, they have got some land because there is a land right now under the constitution. So there are some of them are farmer, small farmer, but they face discrimination in spite of the fact that they are farmers. Number one, in the land market, they will face a discrimination that the high caste would not sell the land to the scheduled caste. They will prefer to sell the land to the high caste. When the scheduled caste farmer want to buy certain input like irrigation and other, he may not get from high caste. When he want to sell the output, he may not, he face restriction on selling the output. He will have to go to some other villages. Nobody buy milk from them, nobody buy vegetable from them. So in the market, land market, there is a discrimination. So the caste discrimination in the prevailing form is present in terms of denial of sale and purchase in the market. You take the production market, you take business. For example, scheduled caste starts a grocery shop. Not high caste will buy from there. If you go to the Nepal village, obviously the high caste purchase groceries from the scheduled caste shop, or they do not buy noodle or eatery from the scheduled caste restaurant. They will restaurant of their own caste. So in the business, they face discrimination. So if you want to study economic discrimination, you have to study many of employment, they face restriction, quality employment. So you have to study the employment. Now the employment discrimination is of two types. There is discrimination in hiring, complete refusal, and preferring the people of your own caste for employment. Even if you are hired, there is a discrimination in wages. You are paid less than that. And your work condition may be different. You are required to work not only for your work, then there is a discrimination at workplace. So there is a concept of labor market discrimination also there. So to study economic discrimination, when you participate, but how does land discrimination occur? Land discrimination occurs. Land, sale, and so they have to access education. There are primary health centers, there are price shops where the food services are applied by the government directly or through their or with a site. Now you may face discrimination. My institution has done a study that what kind of discrimination children face in the school and higher education. Two evidence is coming up. Your study is very weak on studies now in India in higher education where discrimination is coming, depending on that. Similarly, the woman access the health primary or other discrimination. The health worker may not touch their hand. They will ask the untouchable girl to wave or to hold the hand. So all kind of discrimination is coming up in this study. You should read my book, Blog by Caste, Discrimination in Modern India. Then fair price shop. Then in the school, midday meal, Anganwadi, the untouchable children are asked to sit separately. They are given food at the end, while others are given a plate. Untouchable children are asked to bring the plates. So all kind of discrimination persists in the non-market institutions, which you have to study, which I now studies here very carefully. You have to. It's a preliminary, it's a nice study, but it need a systematic understanding. Now, these are the market, non-market. Then public sphere, the untouchable face discrimination. You have temple, you have road, you have public well, you have common grazing grounds, you have tank. Untouchable in a village face discrimination. And so one has to study that. In fact, it is under the law, they are entitled for this and law ban it, but still they face discrimination. One has to study a lot more carefully. Now, private sphere is another area where social relation between the high caste, sitting and eating together, sharing each pain and sorrows, that you don't find much. There is discrimination in interdining, discrimination in the course marriage. Certainly, Dalit youth were killed in Nepal simply because they had a marriage proposal for the girls from the high caste. So you can see the strong restriction on the caste marriages in Nepal, but one has to study it very carefully. So all private sphere, you have to study it. Public sphere, I forgot, discrimination in buses. We have noticed in Maharashtra, in India, another sphere also. I've just mentioned. So if you want to study caste discrimination, I have given the concept of exclusion, and the point is that complete exclusion is not there to a greater extent, but inclusion is there. But inclusion is with discrimination. You can buy land sometime, but you have to pay higher price. You can get input or manure from the high caste for your farming, you have to pay more. You won't get on time. You want to have a irrigation water private tube well from the high caste, you or civil the water, but at a time. So you are given access. You are given access in education, food services, but with discrimination. So you have to develop that concept of inclusion with discrimination. And same is the case with other public services and discrimination in private. Now, so the framework that one has to use, we have spent time, we had a difficult. Now, the method that is obviously you are studying data, quality, and which I would like to suggest. Quantitative data is and you work out the. It gives you some information, but it has its limitations. You want to have a quality information, quality, you use case in-depth analysis. There are other two instruments we have used. Even the quality methods have their limitation. Other method that we have used is the observation, which you should use. And that you don't have a discussion. You go and just observe. And for example, midday is very difficult to catch. But we have observed, and you can also record. I just said the Dalit children are waiting their turn, and they are looking at the food being student for half an hour, given the leftover food. So you have to observe yourself, take a note. Also, video recording of the midday meal discrimination. We have video recording of the Panditji. He did not know that we were recording his interview. We had an interview with the Rajasthani high caste person who said that our blood and their blood is different. How they can be treated equally? Now this is on recording. So untouchability being a very dense aspect of relationship, apply this all method on case study, observation, and recording. So I think to show you is evidence based.